Hello and welcome to Jake's On First, the podcast where we talk about baseball's problems. The problem is no one's listening. I'm joined by my co-host, a fellow Jake Hippie. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm Jake. I am here.
You sound like Groot. I am Jake.
I am Jake.
Is that all you're going to say now for the rest of the episode?
I am Jake.
All right, joining us for the second half of our fantasy team profile and projections, we have Steven Coelho. Steve Coelho, how are you?
How's it going? I am great.
Can I call you Steve?
I'm not a big Steve guy.
Not a big Steve.
My name doesn't have a B in it. You know, I liked Steve and Blue's Clues, but that's about it.
If you shorten your name to like the E, like some people do, like Stevie, since you spell it with a PH, would you be Steffi?
That'd be Steffi.
Steffi? Okay. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, Steph Curry really ruined the pronunciation of my name.
I've
always been Steven, and
What a
Steph
jerk.
Curry became a superstar, and now everyone's like, every time I go to Starbucks, is Stefan here? Stefan, did you get the caramel brulee latte? And I'm like, no, that wasn't me. But it really was.
Okay, so before we get started on our profile, I had a question for Hipple, kind of to back up something that I had said on one of the previous episodes. I don't remember which one it was. It was probably my episode for my team, but I totaled up all the points for and points against for the last 3 years of the league, and I want to know if Hipple can tell me who leads the league top three in points for and points against.
I am Jake.
Okay, so
all right, I'll stop.
Yeah.
What you want me to guess? Points for?
Yeah, give me the
points
top
scored
three
over the last
points.
3 years.
Yeah.
Me, Adam, and I'll go with Trey / Gaba.
Close. Gava is actually in
2 for 3.
Yeah, it's you and then Adam and then Juberg actually.
Ooh.
Wow. I was not expecting. I was going to say
Consistent.
Casey and Poro was my pick.
He had one season in 2018 where he scored a lot of points, so that was like his one big year, and that's why he was so high.
Right.
He was kind of like middle of the pack the other years, but he had one really big year. All right, who do you think is leading in points against?
Be you, Fleck, and
Trey.
DG.
You have the top three
Maybe,
right,
yeah.
just a little out of order. So it's Fleck, me, and then DG.
Okay. I mean, it's going to be the best teams are supposed to score the most and have the least score on them. The worst teams are supposed to score the least, have the most score on them. So,
right.
three
But I
best
think
teams
there's got to be
for
like
most part,
some
scoring the most.
correlation between like at what point does the scoring against you and the scoring for you, at what point does that ratio get like lucky versus unlucky?
Okay, so if you're the worst record, you're supposed to be least amount of points scored, which means everybody that's playing you is scoring more points than you. So you should have also the most points against. Now, also schedules are a little different. So if you're facing me and Adam and another team that usually scores a lot multiple times versus a lesser team once, you're going to have more of an unlucky year in points against.
So what I see, like based on the data, is I see like there's almost like the far end of the extremes are like the extreme of your luck, and then there's like this middle ground that's like your average where you should be, because like the Trey Gaba team actually is fourth in points for and points against. So
exactly what it should be.
Right, like you would expect to be right around that line, but I'm thinking about crunching some more numbers and seeing at what point like you break the correlation between points for and points against.
Why don't you do me a favor and crunch those numbers again? It's a program, and you don't really crunch them. Just crunch them for us.
Not a math pod.
Crunch.
So
Did it work?
It's an office quote.
Thank you,
No.
Hippo.
You got to just, and then he presses the button and says crunch.
Yeah, and he just says crunch, and nothing happens.
That's when he
and
adds,
Pam
yeah.
goes,
Pam goes,
"Did it help?"
yeah. All right. So with that
All
said,
right.
let's jump
Before we
in.
get going here,
Oh,
Okay.
and I
another
know we
before
already
we
said
get
that.
going.
Yeah. Are we on our app? Is everyone on their app looking at
I'm on my
the team?
computer.
Well, click on Whit Merrifield real quick and
Oh,
look at his profile
yeah.
picture. He needs to lay off the spray tan. And I'm sure it's just the lighting.
That's the Kansas City
of the-
Sun, dude.
I'm sure. Yeah. No, I think it's just the lighting of the camera and like the way it flashed or something. But it looks like super orange and it just threw me off and I couldn't not bring it up.
Honestly, he
Anyway.
kind of looks like that.
Really?
I think it's the lighting also.
No, I think it's the lighting, but I don't know. He looked very orange to me, and I was like, "Wow, man, that was interesting." Anyway, very easily distracted over here.
All right. So coming in at number 5 from the final standings of last season, we have Beni and the Jets, owned by Justin Yastrumsky. Any relation to Carl? I don't think there is,
Yastrzemski?
but there should
No,
be because they have
there
the same
isn't.
last
It's not
name.
even spelled the same way.
And people that have the same last name are always related.
If
Swamp
he was-
Chipper and Andrew Jones are easily related.
Okay,
When I was
no
a
joke
kid-
though, when I was a kid, I thought
I
that.
did too. Yes.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not
So-
the only one.
I didn't think that as a kid, but when I was a kid, I thought Shaquille O'Neal and Jermaine O'Neal were related.
Okay.
And when I was like 15, I found out they weren't. it was a rough day for me.
So
I am Jake.
Justin, not Carl Yastrzemski, finished 4-2 last season, had the winning record, but seems to have lost in the playoffs. So put him back at number 5. Hippo, why don't you tell us a little about the keepers that he chose to keep this season?
Let's see. Clayton Kershaw, Whit Merrifield, Zach Gallen, Max Muncy, Salvador Perez, Lourdes. How do you pronounce that first name with him? Lourdes.
I've heard
Lourdes.
like Lourdes.
Lourdes Cuello.
Lourdes.
If you say it fast enough, people just assume you know what you're talking about.
All right. Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
There you go.
Alex
Yep.
Verdugo, who apparently never takes a shower. DJ LeMahieu, George Springer, Trevor Bauer. He's only keeping 10 out of 12.
And no prospects.
No.
The lack of prospect thing just blows my mind.
I swear
It makes
we
no
had
sense.
a rule that you had to keep 2, regardless of how many of keepers you actually kept. I swear that was a rule
we
when
kept it
started.
we kept it very capitalistic, and we're just like
I just want to be clear.
as
He doesn't get
little
2 picks
restrictions
for.
as possible.
He doesn't get 2 picks for this, right?
Yeah, you do.
See, that's what I'm saying. He does, and I don't.
Wait,
like that-
he's getting 2. Wait, he's getting 2 picks for keeping for not keeping
I
prospects.
can't change that.
See,
But wait, they're not the first. Let me rephrase. Is he getting 2 first-round picks?
The
Yeah,
way
he
this has
gets-
always worked is ESPN's keeper rounds are the first rounds. So we have 12. So the first
Why
12
the
rounds
heck
are
would
keepers.
anybody keep prospects? I wish I knew that.
That's why
Wow.
we made the rule that you had to keep 2. You didn't have to keep all 12 slots, but you
Yeah,
had to keep
I
2
agree.
prospects. That was
I think-
definitely a rule.
I think it's time for some executive action to be taking place.
I
And you
can't
can
do
tell them.
anything.
No,
But
yes,
that was
you can.
no. That was
No, I
definitely
can't
a
edit it.
rule
I
when we
can't, like,
started the
edit
league, and
anything.
people have just forgotten.
That
I
is
forgot
that is
too.
absurd. You're gonna have to tell them to draft Tim Tebow in the first round.
The
I'm
first
serious.
I remember it right now. The first year
Or
we
they
did
can
it.
draft a prospect. They can draft somebody who's prospect eligible. That should be the rule.
The first year we did it, Uberg only kept 10 dudes and no prospects. I know that for a fact.
Well, why the heck would anyone keep prospects?
Right. That
Well,
was
I'm
the
glad
whole
we
discussion.
changed
That's
it.
why
Daniel
we-
kept Bichette and Vlad Jr. because they were special guys.
But
It wasn't
I
supposed to
get-
be a
that's the
prospect. It was supposed to be a
whole
future
reason
star.
we made
No, I
the
get
rule,
that. I get that.
and people
But I'm
just
just saying,
aren't
It wasn't a
following it.
rule.
It definitely was.
Ask. We need to text Daniel. He's the only person that might know.
All right, text Daniel, and let's
Well-
keep talking about this team.
Okay.
well, good for, I will say this. If that isn't a rule, good for them for manipulating the system, which
It's not
was flawed.
manipulation. It's always been free market like that.
When I say manipulating, I don't say that with a negative connotation.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying good for them for taking advantage of a flawed rule, which I wasn't aware of, because I think it's smart. I think it's smart to not keep a prospect unless it's somebody who was like a rookie last year, but still a rookie this year, if that makes sense, that is already like going to be a superstar that anyone else is going to draft in the first round anyways. Because like if I was aware of that, I would have kind of been on the fence. I had a Rosarena, so that one I would have kept him for sure. And then I think I kept like Luzardo. Probably would have kept him anyways, but like I still would have been on the fence. So that's, I don't know, good for him and good for, was it Uberg that kept 10? Good for him too. Now I'm pissed off.
Yeah, we're coming in hot now. All right, I've also discussed our go-to rules official, which would be our umpire friend Trey Ward, to see what he says. So Cuello, what do you think about like needs for this team? What do they need?
Well, they do need prospects. I mean, even though we just kind of went in depth about that. I would say on a different note, it looks like their lineup's a little short on power. Now they got Muncy, but then DJ LeMahieu is a better power hitter, I guess now. But I don't see him as like he's not going to hit 30 home runs. Whit Merrifield, not a power hitter.
What about
Gurriel?
Yeah,
so you got Springer. No, definitely Springer. But you got Springer and Muncy as like true power hitters. Then Salvador Perez.
Big
I could see him hitting 30 home runs. Yep. Overall, I don't know. I guess their hitting is just nothing about it excites me. I don't love Gurriel as a keeper.
I like
even
DJ.
Though DJ is what's funny is he has DJ at third base. If he drafts well, DJ will not be playing third base. But it's also pretty cool how he has kind of hoarded two of the top second basemen, and Muncy's a second baseman. So second base is like the hardest position to fill this year, and he's got three legit second basemen.
I like that he's got Muncy and LeMahieu who have 3 position eligibility. Like that gives you so much flexibility in your lineup.
Yeah, it does. But that doesn't change the fact that if I could choose between flexibility and having the best players, I would still choose the best players. And I'm not quite sold on the hitters. And same with the pitching, because Gallen's out now, which is bad luck, but that's a bummer for him. And then as good as Bauer is, he's probably just there's no way he's gonna be what he was last year, the whole year. And then you might even say the same about Kershaw. So if I had a gun up to my head, I'm saying this team has some negative regression this year.
Yeah, this team, like, it's definitely got some good players, which is probably why, he's at least in the top half. But it all comes down to how he drafts. He kept Salvador Perez. I still don't think catchers are worth keeping. So I don't know who else he could have kept, but
I disagree with you as far as the keeping catcher rule. I think if you have a top 5 catcher, you keep that guy because it's hard to replace a good catcher.
I mean,
the difference,
like Real Muto, like I don't think any catcher out there is going to produce enough to make it worth it.
Yeah, but the way I'm seeing it is the replacement for what the catcher you had. Like if he didn't keep Perez, replacing Perez just means he's going to have to find a way to draft him anyways, or he's going to have to go pick up Austin Nola or something. Whereas like, I don't know who his other players were, so I can't give you an example, but let's say he decided not to keep Zach Gallen. He could have replaced him with so many pitchers anyways. So I look at it the other way. I think if a position is thin across the league, it's good to keep that player. However, the counter, and to kind of support your point, I almost kept Mitch Garver last year because he was a catcher and he had a really good year. I think I did keep him. Maybe I didn't. Either way, that would have or was a bad decision, if that makes sense. So catchers tend to like be a little inconsistent. Like it's rare to find a catcher that produces every year.
Yeah.
You know, like, but as a hitter, I mean, for fantasy purpose, Perez is that person. You know, we don't. This is not an OBP league, so I like the Perez keep.
Hip, how do you feel about this team?
Kind of like with Cuello, with the catchers. Since it's thin, you have to look at him compared to an average catcher at the position, because you're probably not gonna go blank there. And so, like, let's say Perez averages what 4.2 a game. The average catcher will say is 3.5, so you're gaining 0.7 a game, which might be a bigger advantage than if he kept somebody else who was good, but just good at a strong position with a lot of depth. And also, Perez, with healthy, can be a 250 guy with 30 home runs, that's huge for a catcher. That's what Gary Sanchez was doing when he was the best thing ever for 1 year.
When was Gary Sanchez good?
Huh?
When was Gary Sanchez good? I can't remember.
His rookie year. I had him. He was
every spring training since he's been in the league.
He also has 3 second basemen, which in a thin position, and they all have to play multiple positions, so he has a lot of depth there.
Yep.
That's actually with he's kind of like a Uber, where his team's kind of just all consistently middle of the road. It's just Yaz has a little bit more potential to make that push.
A little more upside to this team.
He has a little more upside, which means if he does a couple things right, pulls off a couple
didn't
good
have
trades.
Trevor Bauer and Clayton Kershaw as his pitchers, and on top of that, he has to kind of build on what you're saying. Having 3 second basemen, that gives him options to trade those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because there's gonna be at least one team that desperately needs a second baseman this year. So
I mean, he's probably not going to trade LeMahieu because that's an MVP guy.
Yeah, that's
Muncy and Maryville though are going to have good trade bait for somebody thin at second.
Yeah,
but Yaz in all our leagues, like all the sports and stuff, he's usually been a 500 team. But the last year or so in other leagues, in other sports, he's kind of gone a bit above 500. So he's starting to make a push towards that championship caliber team, or at least fighting for a championship spot. So
it's kind of funny that you say he was 500, because in 2018 he was 9-9. In 2019 he was 9-9, and then last year he was 4-2.
That's usually the owner he is. His biggest issue is sometimes he might take a week off and not always be checking things like hardcore and stuff. But if he doesn't take that, if he just pulls off a couple good trades, man, he'll be there.
I think the one weakness of this team that's just pretty glaring when you scan over the roster is he doesn't have a first round pick. Trevor Bauer is a solid second round pick.
Yeah.
DJ LeMahieu is the third round pick in most leagues, but a justifiable second round pick because he's a second baseman.
Mm-hmm.
And Kershaw is like a third or fourth round pick. Springer is probably like, I think he was ranked like around the 50s.
Okay.
Kind of like in the Aaron Judge territory. So
if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think you could justify like reaching for him in like the third or fourth round in a 10-team league.
Yeah.
Like, assuming you're drafting from scratch. But nobody in this is going to be a first round pick in a 10-team league unless someone's making a bad move. So that's the obvious
going to get a player
here
that they really want.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the obvious weakness here. But on the other end, you don't see anyone there. It's like, oh, he could have dropped this player and easily drafted them back. Like even Gurriel, who in my opinion is his worst keeper, before Gallen got hurt, he was still like, I think in the 100 range for average draft position. So was Verdugo, and then maybe Perez a little bit behind them. But like it's a 10-team league. So it's 100. If you have your top 100 players, that's not too bad. So
yeah. All right. Any last thoughts on this team?
I do have clarification on that keeper rule if we want to do that now.
So I also got a response from Trey. Trey says he's pretty sure, but he can't remember for certain.
Well, I don't delete text So I was able to go back through my text on this. And when we decided it, at least through text, it was stated 10 keepers, 2 prospects, no restrictions. And those were the max. It said 10 and 2 max, no restrictions, don't have to keep them all. That's what we said.
Well, I think
But my
that
understanding of that
looking
was that the
forward,
10 wasn't the max. The 10 was not for sure, but the 2
And
was.
I asked Daniel. Daniel said he never remembered that. He's
honestly,
wondering if you're confused by the one we're implementing next year.
Either way, I think it's too clearly Yaz was being strategic and not keeping prospects. Well,
he didn't. Like I said, him and Uberg, I don't. Jazz has kept 12 before. Uberg's always kept 10.
So they just don't know prospects,
Right,
or
they just
care
don't
about
follow the
prospects.
process.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I think the rule needs to be amended, and it needs to be. We kind of already changed that rule, so we should make it clear. You have to keep. Looking forward, you have to keep the same amount as every other team.
And we're not going to do that this draft because teams have set up stuff. But we already said we're implementing that. You have to keep the number starting next year.
2021 is the same rules as the previous year, and then 2022 we can make it. You have to have all your keepers. It's just easier that way. Okay, cool.
Okay, so it sounds like we already have some agenda points for the 2021 winter meetings. And with that, let's wrap up this team. And we'll see you guys next time for another team profile and projections.
Let's do it.